Howdy, y'all. How's it going? You're already primed to laugh. I didn't even have to try on that one. You were.
I just was not expecting howdy y'all to come out of your mouth ever.
I picked it up when I lived down south. Do the whole accent if I wanted to, but I don't.
Don't do it. What's up? How's it going?
Nothing much. Chilling. How are you?
I'm good. I'm living the dream. When was the last time we even recorded one of these things? It's been a while.
It was right before your Peru retreat.
Oh, well then I guess we have stuff to talk about.
Yeah. We were promised some fun details.
Holy crap.
So
Wow.
It's up to you whether you want to keep that promise or not, or just disappoint all our loyal fans. You know.
Well, when you put it like that, I'm just going to disappoint everybody. No, I'm just kidding. That's not my style.
Yeah, you went on quite an adventure since we last talked.
I did. I really did. So I guess we'll just dive right in, and I'm just gonna.
A trip,
I don't know,
so
we'll
to speak.
Yeah, it was a hell of a trip. Yeah, and it was also a trip, like a journey and a trip all at the same time. So I guess we'll start at the beginning. So when I was heading to the shuttle for the airport, it was like 40 degrees out, right? And like, let's frame this by starting with, I'm from Virginia, but I lived in California for the last 4 winters, and I forgot about black ice.
Oh, yeah.
But it did not forget about me. Yeah.
I remember the first time going back to New York during the winter after being in Florida for a few years, and I was driving in New Hampshire, and my friend was giving me directions to our other friend's house. And he's like, oh, it's right there as we're passing by. And so I try like doing a harder kind of brake to slow down. And all of a sudden we go, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. You cannot brake in the winter here. You gotta like crawl to a stop. But sorry, go on.
So yeah, nice to know you've had an experience with it too.
Oh yeah.
Because about 1 second before I hit the black ice, I was like, oh shit, I'm about to hit black ice. And I did. I hit it, and I did what you're supposed to do, right? Like when you hit black ice, like if your car is going like this way, you're supposed to go this way with it. Yeah. Right? So like... Yeah. So that's what I did. But both sides of the road were covered with black ice. So when the car that I was driving was our Fiat, which is like a little roller skate on wheels. Yeah, and it's a front wheel drive. It is. It was. And there's no weight in the back of it. And so when I hit the black ice and I was like doing what I was supposed to be doing, there was nothing I could do. And so I wound up, I actually just last night, Vince wanted to see the video because, he's deployed. And when I told him about the accident, he's like, you did what? And so I actually edited the video last night, and it actually looked really graceful, right? But like I definitely, and I'll send it to you if you want to see it, but I definitely like went off the side of the road, and there was this like several feet deep embankment, and I ran into... it was like government property right on the other side of the road, and they had this like 12-foot tall chain link fence with barbed wire around the top. And when I hit the fence down the embankment, the car rolled over and somehow also turned around, and the barbed wire caught the front axle of the car and actually kept it from flinging into the trees behind it. So I totaled my car. I ruined it. It was fast, and it was actually like graceful for totaling a car. Not that totaling a car is graceful, and like 0 stars, don't recommend.
No, I guess yeah.
But when I was watching the video, like, so the funny part of it is how I narrated the video, because it's like silent all the way through. But then like when I hit the black ice, I go, oh shit. And then I go, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And I like roll and thump and land.
You should have put on like the classical music, like as you start sliding. The violins just swell as you start rolling over in slow motion.
It's so bad.
Well, we're glad you're okay. Like, I remember we all got the text, and I saw the picture, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you were okay. I mean, you came out with some injuries, of course, but nothing critical.
Yeah, not like talk about like so yeah, let me start by saying I am fine. I walked away from it, and it was like stupid because
We're not talking to a ghost right now. The ghost of
exactly,
Carly. Though
yeah,
that
like,
would bring in huge ratings for the show.
I mean, it really
would. Personally, I wouldn't love that, but for the show, no. I mean, it would be beneficial.
No, but I have to say, like, when so like it was funny because I felt like a drunk person who falls and like doesn't spill their solo cup, because the car's a 5-speed, and when I landed, it was still fucking on. Like like I didn't stall out or anything, and so I was like, mad props to me for that. But like really stupidly, like, so nobody was around when it happened, but shortly after, like, this guy pulled up, and come to find out he lives in the neighborhood across the street, but he stopped and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Like, I'm not really sure. But I was like afraid to open the door because I didn't want to make it worse, but like after the adrenaline started going, I thought I was going to puke, and I was like, "I think I'm going to throw up." He's like, "You might as well just go ahead and open the door." I was like, okay. And then when I got outside, I was like, "Oh my God, this is so fucking bad." But it also, like, I had so much gratitude for it because that barbed wire caught the front axle, and I stopped like 2 feet from the trees. Wow. And if it hadn't been, like, it was, like the whole road back here is just lined with trees. It was literally the best case scenario for towing a car. Yeah. Like, it was one solid flip over. Like, I walked away, my glasses flew off of my face and they didn't break. And the airbags didn't deploy. Like, it was legitimately like, if you got to total a car, that's the way to do it. And I did. I wound up going to the chiropractor the day that it happened. And he really kind of, like, I have never cracked so much in all of my visits combined to the chiropractor. It was like literally everything. And then for the next several days, like, my whole neck was sore. But, like, I thought I had flipped over, but everybody was like, "No, there's no way you flipped over." But there was this, like, huge gouge in the roof. And I'm like, and I remember thinking, like, after the oh shit,
unless
and, like,
during the tumble, while you were, sliding.
It would have had to been a big ass bird, like, I mean, you could see the inside of what the roof is made out of in the car, but so, but the really nice man, he stopped and helped, and I texted him, like, my first response was to text in our, like, little group chat of everybody who was going, to say, "I'm not going to make it." Like, I'm not going to make my flight. I'm going to be late. I just, like, totally wrecked my car. And so, we get all the cops out there and the military police because it was on like government property. Oh gosh, and they're like asking to
break into Area 51.
I know, right? So they're like asking for my husband's like rate and rank, and I'm like, "You're not gonna tell him about this, are you?" Because he's deployed. Like, I need to like follow the channels to let him know about this. And they're like, "No, we're gonna leave that up to you." But like, everybody was like so helpful, and I was really grateful because they actually came out and salted the road after that. I mean, it would have been nice if they'd done it before I totaled my car, but they at least came out and salted it so that it wouldn't happen to other people. And I was like, okay, and there's a little validation that, like, yes, indeed, the whole road was covered with ice. And as I was like, like an hour later coming up from the ditch and I stepped onto the road, I nearly fell on my ass because it was so slick with ice. Wow. So the cop brought me home, and then of course the neighbors are all like, "What happened?" So like I spent that first day, and like meanwhile I'm like, "Can I still make this flight?" Because I'm like, if I get blah blah blah, then I was like, "No, I'm like, not today." I had to buy a whole new flight. It was like $1,000, and I was like, "Man, that really sucks." But I got to the point where I asked the question. I was like, "Okay, is this the universe telling me not to go? Like, is this like, here's your sign, don't fucking do this trip, And I asked my best friend as well, and the answer that I got and that she got were the same answer, which was nice. And the answer was like, "No, you've committed to doing this, and this is like the last thing trying to get in your way. So you get to decide, like, before there's a big breakthrough, there's usually a big breakdown." And in this case, it was like literal. Things get shaken up. Yeah, like things get like shaken up and flipped upside down, and like actually literally in this case, And it was funny because I was pretty sure, like, as I was rolling the car over, I remember thinking, oh, this is not how you're supposed to be in a car. Like, this is unnatural movement in a car. Like, the stupid shit that, like,
Wait,
goes through your brain.
cars shouldn't be upside down. Something's
Yeah.
wrong here.
Something's not right here.
You're
But
very
it was
astute,
fun.
Carly.
You try crashing your car and tell me what kind of genius ideas you have.
Okay, real quick story. The one time I was in a car crash, I was driving home, and there's this like long road. It's just like the whole island. I was on an island. It's all just one road, and there's just stoplights like randomly all throughout. A stoplight, I'm driving, a stoplight, it's a little, like, I wasn't expecting it. I brake. It was like a little bit of a harder brake, but nothing crazy. I look in my rear view mirror like, oh, I hope someone wasn't close behind me. There's a woman in a giant BMW SUV just barreling toward me.
Oh my
And
God.
the only thing that went through my mind was, ah, shit. And then, boom, she hits me so hard. She hits me through the lane. I end up on the other side of the road.
Oh my God.
And my car is totaled. But yeah, no genius ideas. I was just like, ah, shit. I
Yeah.
might die. Like, it was
Yeah.
just like a realization
Yeah.
of like, well, this might happen.
Yeah, I had one of those a long time ago where this like tractor trailer, there were these two tractor trailers like who came out into the highway from the shoulder, and then one came over into my lane, which was the left lane. And I was not a slow driver when I was younger, and so I was probably going 70, and it should have only have been going 55. But there was a guy behind me who was also going 70. But this tractor trailer pulls over in front of me going like 25. So I slam on the brakes and I stop. Like, and so I also had that thought of like, oh fuck, I might be about to get decapitated, But so like I stop, like I don't know. I have really close calls, it seems, in the history of my lifetime. Like, so I'm like, this far, like, what is that, like 2 feet away from this fucking tractor trailer. And I look up and same thing. This guy, like, plows into the back of my car. And Casey, she, like, peed all over the car, which I don't blame her at all. She was in the back seat and she came and, like, ran up under my feet. And weirdly enough, I still didn't stall out. So, like, I've had 2 car accidents, both in 5 speeds, and have not stalled out in either one. So, for some reason, I'm weirdly proud of that. But anyways...
Dude. And what was wild too is I always wear my seatbelt. But that one trip, like as I was driving, I was like, oh, nothing happens. This island's dead. The seatbelt's really annoying me. Why don't I just take it off? And I was like, you know what? No, like, I won't do it. I'll wait till the highway. If anything, it's fine. And dude, I would have went boom through the fucking front windshield if I took that seatbelt off. I would have been donezo. So yeah, interesting.
Way to not take off your seatbelt. So there was a lot of like kind of introspection in between the chaos of dealing with the actual like legal and technical things that you have to do when you wreck a car, And so I wound up booking another flight for the following day. And then I was like, okay, I have today to get all this stuff sorted. So I did. I took care of the insurance. I went and got the stuff out of the car. And when I went and got the stuff out of the car, I didn't realize that I also would need to like remove the plates. And like, I felt like I was moving through everything pretty well. Like, like holding good space and like not freaking out about anything. I did cry a little bit, like at the scene of the accident, but that was out of a space of gratitude of realizing like how fucking lucky I had just gotten. And, it was funny because as I was like walking around looking at the car, I was like, well, I guess my work here is not done. Like, I'm like, ah, shit, I guess I still have work to do here, because like, I was just like, wow, like I just walked away from this like totally unscathed, like not a single bruise, not a single cut. The car was absolutely trashed, but, I just walked away with like really sore neck muscles, which then once I remembered that it flipped over, I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Like, my body was like, I have a strong ass neck apparently, like making sure that like my head stays on, so like super sore neck. And then like my back was pretty sore for a bunch of days, even after the adjustment. But I mean, like seriously, like super lucky. So anyway, so I take care of all the technical stuff. And then when I call the insurance company, they're like, you need to also remove the plates from the car. And for some reason, that was like the thing that like threw me over the edge. I had like a total fucking meltdown over having to remove the license plates. And I think it was because I'd been looking for like a screwdriver at the house for like, 3 months since Vince had left, and I couldn't find one. And so like I called the tow company and they're like, we don't have any tools here. You have to bring your own. And that's like when I lost it, So I did eventually find one. And so I go back right before the place closes, and I go and I remove the front license plate, and I'm like, okay, everything's fine. Everything's fine. I go into the back, and Vince has fucking like bolted the license plate onto the car. And I was like, are you kidding me? So like by this point, I'm experiencing this like overwhelming sensation of rage, And so like the insurance company's like, yeah, you got to get all this stuff out. And the tow company's like, we don't have any tools to help you. And so I just like stood there and I like hulked the license plate off of the car.
Yes.
Like, I was like so angry, and like I let all of my anger and frustration. And then for good measure, I kicked the car. Not that it was the car's fault, Like,
needs to happen sometimes.
Yeah. So anyway, so I end up like the next day I go, and it like the travel for the trip is like super long because you're, heading down to Peru from leaving from Seattle. And so it took like, I don't know, like 30 hours or something to get there. But fortunately, the new flight that I booked actually happened to line up with Rob's flight. And so we got to hang out and have dinner together. He helped me with my luggage, and, so I had somebody to hang out with in Lima for like the 7 hours of our layover. And I wound up, catching up with the crew, and, my energy was a little off after that because it was a lot of, I don't know, it was a big shakeup,
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
But for the most part, like from there, it was pretty smooth sailing. And, we had a night in Lima, and then we, not in Lima, we went to Iquitos is where we were. And then we headed out to the actual place where the casa was. And so we took this like 2-hour bus ride, and then like a 2-hour boat ride, like into this village, like down the Amazon River, which was really a really cool experience. Even though I wasn't feeling the best, like, that's an area of the world that I've always been like so drawn to, like ever since I was a little kid. And so it was like, even though I wasn't feeling the best, like I certainly was having this excitement to like, be going to this place I've always wanted to go to. So, we get there and we check in, and, we meet the rest of the group, and, then our journey started the next day. So it was like this like wild journey just to even like get to the journey, which
Yeah.
I feel like, you've been to the Paul retreats at Blue Spirit in Costa Rica. So like, it's the same kind of thing for that. It's like, I always have this really deep appreciation for whatever it is we're doing. Like when there's this, like, you have to really want it to get there. And I really felt like that was kind of what this invitation was for me, was like this thing has the potential to be an incredibly transformative experience. And are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to do what it takes to get there, to start the journey, And
Yeah.
to me, the answer was hell yeah. Like, hell yeah, I'm willing to do it. So the journeys themselves, words don't do it. like it's really, have you ever sat with plant medicine?
Not really like a medicine journey, no.
Okay. When I was younger, I did a lot of drugs, right? Which now, people are using medicinally. And so I have quite a bit of experience with hallucinogens, and I have a lot of experience with energy work. And it's only like been in the last couple of years. Like I did like an intentional mushroom journey with a couple friends last year. But this was really my first time with something like this and something of this magnitude. And, the place that we went to is called Casa del Maestro. And the maestro that we work with, he also is an expert, and I think they call him a Palermo. I might have the word wrong, My Spanish is non-existent, so forgive me. But this guy's like authentic. Don Alberto is, he started training in plant medicine when he was 8 years old. Like this is truly a calling for him. So not only is he an expert in the ayahuasca itself, but he's also an expert working with the tree spirits of the other medicinal trees in the Amazon. And I think that there's something like 240 species of trees in the Amazon. And of those, it's something like 40 of them are medicinal trees. And so they have all of these healing properties. For some of them work with the physical vessel, but a lot of them work with the emotional, mental, spiritual bodies. And so through his training, he creates this, we'll call it a recipe of plant material to brew into the ayahuasca. And I have to say, it was like really incredible to be able to brew our own, so like we also worked with the sananga root. And so like when you're working with the sananga, you have to like shave off the outside bark. And so we were doing that. And like when you worked with the ayahuasca vine, it comes off the vine and it's green, and then you have to pound it down and it oxidizes really quickly and it turns orange. And so like we pounded the ayahuasca and we like stripped the bark, and we got to like really be hands-on and bring our intentionality and energy into the medicine as it was brewed. So it was like, it kind of reminded me of like making a stew, like you throw the ingredients in the pot and you're like, yep, that's what it needs. And that's kind of like what the maestro does. And so traditionally, when you're working with ayahuasca, you have the ayahuasca vine itself, and then you have the other plant, which has got these green leaves with these little like knobs on the back. And I forget what it's called, but that's what has the DMT. And so most ayahuasca brews, you're just going to find those two plants. But because Maestro is an expert in the tree spirits, he also includes these other barks into it, which I'm going to guess doesn't make it taste any better. Ayahuasca is fucking nasty.
They got no like candy bark. They got
even like thinking about the taste of it, yuck. Like it's and then when you start purging and you taste it again, it's so nasty. But I can, over the week, I developed this profound appreciation for the plant spirits and for the medicine itself and the way that it works and the way that the maestro works with the energy in the room and works with the plant spirits. And I don't know, it was just this incredible, incredible experience. And so I also opted to do the dieta, which includes a tea made up of the tree barks to help build a deeper and more lasting connection with the tree spirits. And so that had a lot of, restrictions and requirements that we followed with that. And every day for the first 4 days, we drank this like bark tea. And it kind of like the first day, it reminded me of like, when you make like iced tea and you like leave it out too long and it gets sour. You know what I'm talking about? Like you taste that like sour twang
really
to it.
I made iced tea, but I think I know what you're talking about just in general.
Okay. Well, I grew up making iced tea, and people who don't put it in the fridge, they always have sour tea, and it doesn't taste very good. And so that was like the first day of the plant dieta was this like sour tea, and it got worse and worse every day because it just like steeped, So, none of it tasted like it was, it reminded me of being like, well, you know what? Medicine doesn't usually taste very good when it goes down. And this was no exception, but so that's like the interesting, like technical side of things. But, through the journeys, the first one, it started off like, it felt like it started off very gently with me. And I think the reason why it did that was because my body was in so much pain from the car accident. Because by the time, it was funny because the guy who facilitates, so the place we went to is Casa del Maestro. And so you've got Don Alberto, who is the maestro, and then you've got Matt, who's the program director, who's been training with Maestro for the last 9 years. So he like translates for those of us who don't speak Spanish, and he also helps kind of like, he teaches us about the medicine and the tree spirits that we're working with and all that. And he runs the ceremony with Maestro. And he was teasing me because, my ceremonies seemed to start off really nice and gently and then get harder as the week went. And he's like, you realize you like did that backwards. And I'm like, you know what? I have a tendency to do like everything backwards. Like that has been like this massive theme in my life, and because it started off nice and gently. And then by the fifth day, I was like, if that had been my first day of ceremony, there's no way in hell I would have sat through all 5 ceremonies because it kicked my ass. It was brutal. Like I purged the whole time. And it was just like so much energy coming up and coming out. And one of the things that I learned about the purging is that it is, first off, like ayahuasca considers like when you're throwing up, she considers that to be soil to plant in. And so it's like, okay, well, if that's the case, if I'm giving back to the medicine by puking in this bucket, then okay, fine. Like that helps me feel a little bit better about it because I am not a fan of throwing up.
No,
Never
I'm
been a
not
fan.
either.
And at one point though, I have to say, like, I don't remember if it was the first or the second ceremony, but I puked so hard it actually popped my back in place. And so I was like,
Wow.
okay, that's great. Like, but it was like, purging from this place that's like so deep inside, like moving this energy that had been like so long rooted in my body that I've tried other ways to move it out and haven't been able to move it. So it really goes in and works with you in a much different way than other approaches to energy work. And that's part of the reason why I developed this like deep appreciation for it. But, the first ceremony was a lot of fun. It was just like, it started off with these like really cool visuals. It was like a lot of like pixels and fractals and not a lot of color, but then the kind of windows that I was looking out of through the Maloka, they actually kind of like turned into these like red serpent eyes. And like behind the red serpent eyes, this huge red anaconda kind of like came out of the Maloka and kind of like approached me. And it was interesting because I learned later that that's actually the spirit of one of the trees that we worked with.
Wow.
And interestingly, it is the tree that works with deeply held emotional blocks. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And it also works with the sacral chakra. And that's very much in alignment with what I've been working with since, I don't know, like the last few years, is working with those lower 3 centers in the reclamation of form, in feeling safe in my body and, feeling at home here and being able to love and honor the body exactly as it is, despite whatever it happens to be doing at any given time, And I didn't learn that until like days later that that's what it was. And that's kind of how like all of my journeys unfolded. Like I had these really cool experiences in the moment. And then afterwards, and honestly, even still now, like the more depth and meaning is unfolding from all of those. And, that first night was really about kind of like an introduction to the medicine where, there was that with the serpent and then there was this thing with the spider that was like crawling up my leg, but then I looked down and it was like actually crawling up a tree. And then I realized that like, oh, I'm a tree. I'm the tree. That's kind of cool. And then the ayahuasca vine, it actually was like wrapping around me as I was the tree and showing me that I don't actually have control of anything. But then later on when we took a tour of the property, because they actually grow their own ayahuasca on the property where Maestro, where they have the casa.
Wow. Yeah.
And what I learned is that the ayahuasca vine actually grows up the trees. It actually needs the trees to grow. And so it's this like symbiotic relationship between the trees and the vines where they're working together for this like wholeness. And I thought it was really cool, like learning this several days later that like, oh, this was the introduction to the medicine. Like she was teaching me in so many different ways that I still don't even like fully comprehend, And from there, it was just like one thing after the other, like so many fascinating experiences, so much like energy moving, so many things that I uncovered. And I actually like learned the root of the moment when I stopped feeling safe in my body. And it happened a lot earlier in my life than I thought. like one of the other cool things that happened the first night was that a lot of the trauma that I'd held in my body around sexual assault and domestic abuse was actually lifted out of my body in like really kind of visceral ways. And as the energy was moving out of my body, I knew exactly what it was, and I was really grateful for that because it felt like this massive like lightening of energy, like a release of all this stuff that had been held in such like, uncomfortable ways. And I have to say, I've also been having way less physical pain in my body since these journeys. Because I think we've talked about it before. Like, I've been having physical pain in my body for the last several years, between the domestic assault and the car accident and then the other car accident, and so my body's just kind of held on to that. And a lot of that released during these journeys. And, that's been like blowing my mind, some of this stuff I've had for like 15 years and it's like, I got rid of it in a week. Like, what the hell? That's wild. So I don't know. It was just, you're either called to it or you're not, and I think if you're called to it, listen to the call. And if you're not, that's valid too, and for a long time, I thought that I was not called to it. But then all of a sudden I was, and I'm glad I answered the call. So
I'd like to talk for a second about the kind of differences, because you're someone who has practiced a lot of different modalities of healing, of spirituality. How do you, for someone out there who hasn't tried something like this, and I'm one of those people, how do you compare it to an experience like that? Maybe an experience with regular energetic healing, with the work you've done with, the guides or other teachers, or, how does that compare? How do you see it in relation to, other spiritual modalities, or how it affected you personally? Any of that? I'm just curious.
Yeah. For me, I feel like the experiences that I've had with other modalities and the energy work that I've already done really laid a solid foundation to work with the ayahuasca. So I think that they work really well together. I think that they complement each other. And I think essentially they kind of do the same things, right? I think they're just different approaches. Like earlier this week, I did a session trade with a friend, and she does a different type of energy work than I do, but we end up with the same result. Like I don't even understand exactly what she does or how she does it, but I can tell you when I was done with the session, I was like, oh my God, I feel like the most like myself as I have since I like totaled the car. And it was like a huge relief. It brought me back into balance where I was out. And so I feel like working with something like ayahuasca does the same kind of thing, right? Like it's energy work and it achieves the same results in just a different way. And, when I was talking to Matt, we all had lunch after we'd come out of the jungle, and we were talking about like neuroplasticity and how, like reforming habits in your brain and stuff like that. And, I was asking how ayahuasca kind of impacts that. And what he explained is that it kind of like slows you down and helps bring you into the present moment. So it's this kind of different way to approach mindfulness to do the same kind of work with the rebuilding of the habits. And I think that like all of these methods are valid. And it's kind of like, what is it, like many paths, one destination or something? Like, that's what it is, I do think that the ayahuasca felt a little more aggressive than some of the other modalities that I've worked with, because it's like, think about like what's actually physically happening to your body during this. Like not only are you under the influence of the DMT, but you're also receiving the influence of the plants themselves. So you're physically purging, right? So you're throwing up. Some people are having diarrhea. There's a one point where you're having maybe double dragon, like, which is, both ends, and that's a term I learned from my husband. So enjoy that one.
It's new for me.
Yeah, well, yeah, there you go. You're welcome. But and it kind of goes in and like digs into these places where you might have had energy stuck, and it kind of like pulls it out. And so, and it does that through purging in different ways. Like for me, there was also a lot of laughter during ceremonies, which then it was kind of fun. It caused this like chain reaction throughout the room, and then like other people started laughing. So it's a much more kind of like physical movement of energy than some of the other energetic modalities that I've worked with. And okay. And here's the image that I'm getting too. So like it looks like the ayahuasca actually works like physically, and then it moves into through the layers of the energetic body and results in kind of causal changes. When I'm doing esoteric healing, we're working the other way down. We're starting at the causal level, shifting energy at the causal level, and working our way down through the mental, emotional, and etheric and physical bodies. So it's just a different approach. And I think that's probably also why, just like when, you know, like when I'm doing sessions with people and we're bringing in multiple modalities, the same goal is, it's the same goal for everyone. It's the removal of the sense of separation, returning to oneness or connection and allowance of that Christ consciousness or monad. It's just a different approach to get there. Does that answer your question? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think it's an insightful and kind of perspective on it. I guess in the practical sense as well, how do you personally like it as a teacher, as a modality? How do you think it fits into your journey? And how do you look at it kind of moving forward?
You know,
because I know some people are, sorry to interrupt, but just like some people are like almost addicted to it, like are, you know, do so many journeys, and then some people it's kind of like a one and done type thing. And so I'm curious how, you know, you are thinking of approaching in the future.
Yeah. So, and you know, it's interesting that you brought that up, because what I was about to say is that when I went into this, I only wanted to do it this one time. I'm like 5 journeys, that's a lot, you know? And for me, I really do think like the ayahuasca journeys themselves, they're not the fix all. They're not the end all be all. They're not you come out of this and you're cured and you're fixed and you're 100%. They open the doorway for you to do the work to fix the shit. You know, they open the door for you to have the moment of pause for the awareness to be able to see what requires attention. Like, I feel like the real magic of the ayahuasca is in the integration period. Like, yeah, sure, there are these fun, interesting, moving, profound experiences during the journeys themselves, but the most important part of that is actually like what you do with that once you go home. Right. And like how you kind of weave that into your daily life. And, you know, I think that, and, you know, if anybody's listening to this and they do like journey after journey after journey, forgive what I'm about to say, but I feel like that is doing it from a place of imbalance. Because if you're just constantly doing it nonstop without the time to integrate, you're doing yourself a disservice. And you're doing it from a space of imbalance because of the fact that the magic really happens during the integration period. You know, like anytime people are sitting with medicine, whether it's ayahuasca or mushrooms or some of these other things that people sit with, you know, it's always about the integration. Like the whole point of the medicine is to become a point of potentiation for you to tap into that frequency of energy where you are in allowance of the monad energy, where you are in connection with your soul. And I think the reason why people get stuck on wanting to just do it over and over and over and over and over again is because they're chasing the high of the potentiation, when I think really the point is to learn what you're capable of and then learn how to do it without the medicine, if that makes sense. And so for me in my own journey, like moving forward, like I said, I only wanted to do it the one time. And if we had only had 3 journeys, like by the end of the 3rd journey, I felt like I got what I came for. But we had 2 more journeys after that. And I can appreciate why the way that this retreat is set up, why there are 5 journeys. So like, it was like the first 3 journeys created this like complete cycle. And then the last 2 journeys built onto what was completed in that first cycle and ripped open something completely new and deeper for me. And so like at the end of the 3rd journey, my 3rd journey was really short, and you know, they vary in length, and it doesn't mean like, and if you have like more medicine, it doesn't mean you're going to have a deeper, stronger journey. Like I did a quarter of a cup the first 2 nights. And even though I asked for a quarter of a cup the third night, he was pouring in the dark because there was no electricity. Like, you know, it had been raining and the solar panel didn't have any sunshine. And I wanted it with closer to a half a cup, which, no thanks. I think I'm a quarter cup all the way kind of girl. like, can I just have a teaspoon? You know, because the medicine does what it does. Like, you're going to get what you need from it every time, no matter what the experience is, you know? But, you know, that third night, like, I walked away from it, like, having seen the heart energy that, like, emanates from my chest, and it, like, lit up the room. Like, I thought I, like, accidentally laid on my flashlight and turned it on, you know? But it was just, like, bright energy. And when I saw it, it shifted something in me, and it brought something into this beautiful balance. And it, like, you know, and then I, like, popped right out of the medicine space. And, you know, then I had time that night to talk to Matt and, you know, tell him about what I had experienced. Like, because I kind of felt like, having popped out of the medicine place, I got, like, a glimpse behind the curtain of how they work and how they, you know, orchestrate the energy in the room. And I felt like that was actually helpful for me coming back into my practice. But anyway, so then those next 2 nights, they ripped open something completely different. Like, the fourth night was very much about, like, connecting with the tree spirits. But then the fifth night it was fucking hard. And I purged all night long. I definitely had one of those double dragons we were talking about. And like, and it was just brutal. And, you know, the heart fire that I get, I wound up with a similar feeling energy down in my solar plexus, only it was so uncomfortable. It was burning and just not anything like when the heart fire started. You know, that was uncomfortable, but it wasn't anything like what I felt in my solar plexus. But I knew during the journey that same energy needed to go down into my sacral and my root as well. And for the life of me, I could not get it to go down there. And so it spent the whole journey in my solar plexus, which later on I appreciated as fine. But because of that, I actually know that there's actually some more work that I need to do, and that I actually need to do with ayahuasca. So I am going to go back. You know, I'm actually going to go back in August, and I'm going to work with Sanango, which is another plant medicine, another plant spirit to work with in conjunction with the ayahuasca. So what I came to appreciate is that sometimes you may not get to decide how often or how much you work with the medicine, because when I went, I was very much set on and intent on this just being the only time. And through that fifth journey, I came to appreciate that that's not actually how it's going to work, that I actually have more work to do and I need to go back and finish it. And so, you know, I really could have, I guess, from the place of personality been like, no, I said one and done and that's it. But I don't think that's really productive, you know, and if I have work to do, then I have work to do. And I guess, you know, in that case, the ayahuasca decides. But I do also appreciate the fact that I need to allow time for integration of what has already happened, because, you know, and be in the appreciation that it unfolded like perfectly for me, and that this can kind of come in and settle and help me lift in frequency, so that when I attend to it again, I'm doing it from the place that I need to be attending to it from, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an excellent way to approach it. I think integration is the unsexy part of the journey for just about everyone, myself included. And it's often like sucky and boring, usually at best, and tiring or frustrating, or, you know, uncertain, you know, often at times.
All of those.
Yeah. And so people don't like it as much as these high, big experiences where they're wrapped up in the arms of, you know, whoever, some spirit or angel. And there needs to be both for the daily life growth, right? For the integration into who we are and our lives. And, you know, it reminds me of Ram Dass, who was like, you know, early in my journey, I thought it was all about getting high. And then I realized, you know, as much as I got high, I needed to come back down again. And I started to want off the roller coaster and just wanted to lift, you know, to slowly and become the lifting. So I think that is an excellent way to approach it, and it's really interesting to me because it has been something I mean, ayahuasca has always been kind of a legend in the drug space, the hallucinogen space, and in early in my life I was super nervous about it, like, oh no, I don't know if I could do it. And then later in my life I'm just kind of like, it's interesting, I don't.
Yeah.
But I appreciate hearing you and our other friends who are students of so many other modalities and who are developed on this path, and how it worked with them and how you guys view it. And it does seem like a valuable tool, again, like you're saying, if it calls to you. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and I think we should also talk a little more about the integration afterwards, because it has not been easy. So we spent a few days afterwards. We spent a few days, and Akito's just kind of like, getting reacclimated to the world and, being around humans again, who were not part of our little group. And then it was a really long and hard journey home. And I got home. It took me like an overnight. Like, I had to spend the night in Seattle. Like, we left like super early East Coast time. And then I got home like the next afternoon Pacific time.
Yeah,
and it was definitely over 20. It was like 36 hours of travel,
Oof.
And it was, when I got home, I actually came home with a fever that I had for 3 days, along with diarrhea, because you know what, now that we have done in this medicine space, like, now that I've done this, like, there's no shame over bodily functions. Like, yeah, I shit for days. Okay. Like, it was rough. It was so rough. So like, this on and off fever for 3 days, and then like nonstop diarrhea, and just like feeling like absolute garbage. And then like, I finally started to feel a tiny bit better. And then the next day I got this like gnarly cold that I had for like 7 days. So like, I spent like 10 days when I got home just like so fucking sick. And like, first off, me getting sick is like super rare. And second off, for it to last that long is like unheard of. But I knew that, between the car accident, which was, slightly traumatic, that I didn't really process, and because there wasn't really time to process it. Like, I think I worked through some of it in the medicine space, but there was still stuff left to kind of work through. Between that and then like working through all the energy that came up in the journeys, like, my body just had like so much catching up to do, And so I finally, and then like I said, like earlier this week, I swapped sessions with a friend, and after that, like, now I'm finally feeling more like myself, where I'm like, okay, I feel like a lighter, sunshinier version of me. Whereas when I got home, I was like all fucking clouds. You know?
And I think especially with travel, I mean, there's so much rough energy in airports and in airplanes, and physically, I'm getting sick like every time I travel now, like some sort of cold, some sort of something, and it's gross. But yeah, it's definitely heavy physically and energetically, all that kind of travel as well. So yeah, no, it makes sense. And and I especially think the body trying to catch up and having to deal with, integrate, and move through all that happened as well, right? Because a lot happened energetically through the physical body and physically to the physical body. So
yeah. So, but like, now that I'm still integrating, and I will be for some time, we're still within that 30-day, post journey integration period, where it's pretty intense integration. And, it's also this like beautiful opportunity to notice, like, okay, when I went into the jungle, like, what did I take and then leave there? And what did I pick up from the jungle and bring home? Like, aside from the crud, like energetically and emotionally and mentally and habitually, like, because like when you are preparing for something like that, like, you really cut your physical food diet down, and your media diet, and your sexual diet, and your, if you're using any other like plant medicines or medications, you cut all of that out and you strip everything down to like the bare bones. And then it's been this kind of like, as the restrictions lift, this like mindfulness of what am I adding back into my life? Like, where am I, where do I want to bring more mindfulness in? Where do I need to make changes? Where have I been living unconsciously in life removing habits that I now want to replace with life affirming ones?
Yeah.
And it's this like really lovely opportunity to be incredibly honest about all of that, and to be, and for me, it's easy. Like, I'm here at the house by myself with the dogs, like, and even if Vince were here, I still think it'd be nice and easy. He's a great supporter, but, I have a lot of space here to just be like fucking honest, like, and it hasn't been pretty the whole time. But then there also have been things that are actually like delightful, like things that I'm noticing, like, wow, I'm feeling really empowered around this thing, or wow, my relationship with this thing is really changing, and wow, like, this is such a subtle, quiet shift, but I can feel it, or I know it,
Yeah.
or, like, even the way that I'm working with clients is shifting, like there's,
It's beautiful.
I don't know, it's incredible. And I'm incredibly grateful that, even though I totaled the car and, like, the bookends of the trip were not super fun, like the totaling and then the sick afterwards, like, but, even with all of that, like, I am incredibly grateful, and I'm super appreciative that I have a partner who supports me in, my own growth and expansion. And I'm incredibly grateful that I have the lifestyle where I can go do stuff like this. And I don't know, it's just like magical.
Well, I love that. And it seems like you were approaching both the journey and the experience after and the integration in the best ways. And that's awesome. And that sort of mindfulness you're bringing to all of it is what turns it from a trip to
Mm-hmm.
a life-changing or life-affirming experience. And I remember reading a long time ago a story about ayahuasca from just like some guy on Reddit, where he talks about, and it just kind of stuck with me because he wasn't a spiritual guy. He wasn't, even pretty much like an atheist. And yet he was just in such a deep state of depression, and to the point where he tried therapy, tried meds, tried drugs. It was kind of the end of the line, he felt like. And so he was like, fuck it, I might as well try this other thing at this point, because I'm, getting close to the end here, like that bad. So it was kind of a last ditch effort. And he went to the jungle, and he took this ayahuasca, and he said he had all these incredible experiences, and he, for the first time, realized himself outside of being singular. And what he brought back and integrated into his life was that feeling, and that's what changed life for him. And he used this metaphor of, life felt like riding around on a bicycle with no wheels, where you're just you just can't get anywhere, and it's just like scraping concrete. And that's what his life felt like. He was like, now, it doesn't feel like I'm in a motorcycle, but it feels like I'm on a bike, and it's got wheels. And some days the tires are flat, some days I'm going uphill, but I'm on a bike, I'm on wheels, and I know I'm moving forward.
Yeah.
And to me, that really stuck with me as more than, some of the other spiritual guys who were like, I went and did ayahuasca and I saw the great panther who made me, which
Yeah.
I appreciate those experiences and I love them. And, we all have these crazy experiences, and that's wonderful. But I think the kind of practicality of that story, and how, someone doesn't have to come necessarily with these predilections around spirituality or even have to believe in anything, and they can find solace through this nature, this piece of nature, through them. And it changed his life, and took him out of this like suicidal almost depression. And so like that to me was really powerful, and is something I think of when I think of ayahuasca. And so it's interesting to hear your take on it as well. And I think there's a lot of beauty in the understanding, of this kind of straightforward, and I don't know how you've explained it and all of that, but yeah, it just made me think of that.
Yeah, and that reminds me of, like they're using like different like LSD and stuff with like veterans, who have PTSD, and they're
Yeah.
finding like similar kind of, results from that. And I think, part of that is the not only like helping like the guy with the concrete bike wheels, right? Like not only seeing yourself outside of being separate, but also being able to kind of like go back to these points of trauma and address them from a different space. And
Yeah.
like allowing you, especially I think they do this with like MDMA therapy, but like
Yeah,
going
MDMA is
into these
big
like
too.
traumatic spaces, like, when you're on MDMA, you're having this like massive like serotonin dump, right? And so like when you're that and you're that like high, like energetically, it makes it easy to view these traumas through a different lens. Like, is it possible to do that without these medications? For some people, yes, but for other people, like, no, they're not actually able to do that.
They don't have the
Like that's
context for it, or the know-how,
exactly,
or yeah, the
exactly.
training, or yeah,
Yeah,
time,
so
stuff like
it's
that. Yeah.
yeah, like it's an avenue to get there. And I know like, I work through some of my traumas the way that they do it with the MDMA, like going through and, like addressing it and looking at it through a different lens. But I had a lot of support to help me be able to do that, and I was still like malleable enough then that I was able to kind of do that without needing those different kinds of medicinals. So, I think that it's all valid, and I think that it has kind of like softened my perception of different medicines, because for a while I was like, why would you go that route? Like, I remember like learning about ayahuasca a bunch of years ago, being like, why would you want to go like puke in buckets and shit and like fucking like that sounds awful. And there were moments of it that were awful, but there were also moments of it that were incredible. And like it's shifted my perception on a lot of different medicines. Um,
Uh,
and I will say I'm still a little more led toward the nature medicines than like the chemically derived ones, because with the nature medicines you're also working with the spirit of the plants, and I feel like for me that's really important. And so, I think like if somebody out there listening is looking at exploring different types of plant medicines, or you know I don't know what they call the non-plant medicines, I would I don't know, decide how much that matters to you or not, and then choose
yeah.
accordingly.
Yeah. No. Really awesome research coming out of those fields right now, and something I'm personally keeping an eye on, and appreciate that we're trying to take that route instead of kind of endless pharmaceuticals, where for a lot of people that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I think it's card time.
Yeah. So what are we asking today?
I couldn't even tell you an idea of what I wanted to ask.
Yeah. Okay, I guess for me, like, I am still in the integration period. And we're actually getting ready to hit this new, Wood Dragon New Year. Like, so some big shit is shifting.
Do you want to pull for me and I'll pull for you again?
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay. So,
You want me to go first for you?
yeah, sure.
Okay. So what's your question? I'll give it.
So what I guess for me, it's like, okay, I'm still in this integration period, and what do I need to know or do to kind of support myself through this period with as much gentleness, ease, and grace as possible?
I love that. And when I kind of feel Ganesh, there's always this beautiful nature, powerful, peaceful nature energy that comes with him. So I feel like this is a good pairing for you
Yeah.
here. Okay. All right, let's see what we get. Oh, it's behind my head now. Oh, wow. I've yet to see this. This is a gorgeous card. Absolutely gorgeous. Guidance.
Ooh.
So what do you read from it? Can you see it well?
Yeah. Interestingly, like the first thing I get is this like overall heart energy sensation throughout my entire body. So it's like, for me, this really feels like an allowance of all of the guidance that's already there. And, like, even after like totaling the car, like it made me even more profoundly aware of all the support and love and guidance that I have. And interestingly though, even though like the images are of guidance kind of like surrounding Ganesh, like to me this feels like inner guidance. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think he's got the connection to them out inside him, even though they're depicted outside him, right?
Yeah.
And like his knowing comes like through them and with them, like through the inside almost, or I don't know, I'm not describing it well, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So, to me this sounds like a message to like, hey, remember to ask for help when you need it.
I like that. And it feels like, Ganesh is almost standing there with like this look in his eye, like, yeah, I know, like, hey, Luna, off. What are you doing? Oh my God.
Breaking stuff, it sounds like.
Freaking cats. But he almost has this twinkle in his eye of like, I know. I am of the knowing, and they are all there supporting me, and I know that. And yet still I have the knowing inside. And so, it's like those have been your teachers, your guidance, on the path. And they're there, and yet you still have the guidance inside you as well, and can work knowing that they're working with you and inside you, I think. All right, let me read it real quick.
Okay.
But this is a really cool card. I've yet to see this one.
Yeah, it is really cool.
33. Oh, 33, good number.
Oh, yeah.
Guidance is all about learning to communicate with your soul and discovering and manifesting your purpose. Ganesh is worshipped and adored by the Trimurthis, I'm sorry, I definitely butchered that, or the Trinity of Hinduism, which is made up of Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma. The story goes that during the period of dissolution, the water and the wind were demolished and the earth evaporated. Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva wandered the earth to determine what was causing this dissolution. The gods discovered a huge aura of light where Ganesh was enshrined. The Trinity immediately bowed to Ganesh in reverence and began to worship and praise him. They requested that Ganesh bless them. Ganesh entrusted the gods with 3 separate deities. Vishnu is the preserver, Shiva the destroyer, and Brahma the creator. Guidance is based on communication. The soul can send messages through symbols, synchronicities, hunches, sudden inspiration, dreams, and even direct channeling. Consciously connecting with your guides, heightening your psychic abilities, and fine-tuning your skills to be present and to pay attention are all important parts of learning to receive guidance. As you open up, your soul begins to communicate your inner purpose for this lifetime to you. When you learn to hear and recognize its promptings, you start to take on a magical quality. Remember that you can ask Ganesh to support you in creating a raised awareness. Make a point to look at spirituality from new perspectives that may be unfamiliar to you. Be willing to talk to people whose experiences and beliefs are different from your own. You may need to move out of your comfort zone. I think you already did that. You will be all the richer for it. If you are concerned about getting true information from a psychic or intuitive, you can prepare by asking your heart to receive information that is for your highest good. Make sure your motivations are pure. Rely on your intuition and your inner knowledge rather than intelligence or conscious mind. Watch for synchronicities and opportunities. Trust your instincts and pay attention to the messages that can turn up from a variety of sources. Be attentive to your dreams. You want to keep a dream journal. Synchronicities are likely now. Is possibly a pleasant surprise will be coming to you soon in regard to your work. This could even be a new job opportunity. The gods, Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma may represent the different male energies in your life. Engage in the energy of the men in your life and the energy of the Trinity to assist you with the task at hand.
A lot of that feels like a big nod of what I'm like toward what I'm doing already. Like you're going the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like furthering, like it sounded like this is just gonna propel you further in all the best ways, and you just
Yeah.
need to keep trusting the natural ability you have to keep growing in all these different ways in your work. And I like you got a new maybe work opportunity coming. Maybe we collab
Yeah.
on something. That'd be fun. I don't know. But it seems
Yeah.
like you're, a big yes on, continue to build the strength of the connection you already have and let it, work its magic in you and with you. And
Yeah, and it's interesting because while I was there, I had this appreciation that I'm getting ready to start doing some sort of like group work. I don't know what that means or what it looks like. So I do think there is something coming, and I have a feeling that springtime is when things are going to start shifting into like I've been feeling like for months that there's this like huge energy coming for us that is going to cause this like big shift in some way that I don't understand yet. And it feels like springish is around the time. So I guess
cool.
we'll see what happens. So, thanks for that. All right. So, for you, what is your question?
I don't know.
Okay.
Whatever you feel right.
All right. Let's see what we need to know for Tom. Tom could use a little ease and grace in his experience right now. All right. Oh, we have love. So this is one of the sacred journey markers. And what do you get from this?
It's a little grainy, I'm not gonna lie. Is it staircase?
Yeah, it's steps. You've got stone steps. So, one of the other things that you probably can't see because it is grainy. Fortunately, it uploads better. But there are these interwoven rings on this like part of the step here. But for me, you're like really what this card is about, specifically for you, is like falling in love with yourself here and now, and really like leading from that heart energy of love in everything that you do, and bringing your focus and attention back to the space. And like not romantic love, like that may come along, but that's not really the focus or the intent here. Like this is really about that higher octave love, that spiritual love and wisdom. So kind of taking that Ray 2 love of love and wisdom and lifting it the octave to the Ray 10, to that higher space, so, or to the upper room, if you will. And really allowing your actions and your movement, which are the same thing, but your movement through the world and the actions you take as you move through the world, that's a better way to put it, allowing all of that to be guided by love. Like in the frequency of the universe, there's the frequency of love and abundance, and then there's the frequency of fear and lack. And we can't be in both at once. Like, and everything in between you can distill down into one or the other. And it's either love or it's fear. It's either abundance or it's lack. And so there becomes this request for the constant asking of which one of these am I focused on? Which one of these am I vibrating in? And as you hold that space of awareness and move back out of the fear space when you get into it, back into the love, you receive this constant guidance that kind of paves the way for you. It makes the path clear, and it really becomes beneficial in every step that you take. So.
And I think, I don't know, just the stairs along with that make me think of the evolution of love and the raising of the vibration and strengthening as you move up the staircase and knowing a deeper and stronger love.
Yep. So, this one's kind of short, but this marker reminds you to show kindness and compassion to all whom you meet on your path, be it a beggar on a street corner, a coworker, a family member, an animal, or a plant whose leaves need pruning. This marker asks you to shift perception from yourself as a solitary person on the earth to one who's part of a living system. Love is what made you, so keep it flowing. Remember to receive love as well. Ask yourself, am I blocking love? This marker reminds you that you're as connected to all of life as it is to you, and that you're responsible to be the steward of the love of the God-Goddess. Love is without conditions. It is respectful, mindful, sees all life as sacred, and acts in accordance. Love reminds you that this very planet is a living being. Love is the very presence of the divine in you, and it sees the divine in others. This is the time to see through the eyes of love and always ask before you act, what would love do? The answer will always bring you extraordinary power. This marker is a very fortunate and transformative omen.
I love that. And, you know, it reminds me of yesterday and that little kind of meditation practice we had at the end there. Mm-hmm. With, like, the being that put their hand on our shoulders and just gave us this, like, fire of love.
That scared me.
You almost jumped out of your skin there.
Sorry.
That's funny.
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, that was really nice. I definitely appreciated that. And it certainly is a nice exercise to remember, you know, especially when you are feeling disconnected, a little out of sorts maybe. Call that being back in and say, hey, a little more love, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. That was beautiful, and I appreciate that card. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and thanks to you too.
Of course. All right, you wanna
wrap it up?
People know, yeah.
Yeah.
How they can follow.
Yeah. So as always, if you love the podcast, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your family too. And you can always like, subscribe, share, and download the episodes. And thanks, you guys, for all of your love and support. Thanks for coming back and listening and sharing and all that kind of good stuff. And am I missing anything?
No, I want to echo the thank you. And we've hit some milestones on, like, all-time high with listeners and episodes being listened to and viewed. And so all that's awesome. And yeah, we appreciate everyone for coming back and for the new people that do join. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're doing our best to be consistent. We've been having a hell of a time, you guys.
Yeah, for real. I've been kicking our ass in a number of ways, but
it really has. But we're here, we're kicking, we're doing what we can.
I'm gonna try and get it out early, but I got surgery next week too, and then but
yeah,
we're gonna be more consistent.
Yeah, we're gonna keep kicking.
Yeah,
we're gonna keep going,
sure.
and it'll just be a delightful treat. So that's why you want to subscribe, because then don't you get notifications? Yeah, you got to follow it so that you get a notification whenever you do get one, and it makes every episode all the sweeter. All the sweeter, whatever, you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I get it. Perfect.
All right, so we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.